Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Good Strong Words, and today I'm going to be filming a vlog slash review kind of thing of The Secrets of Hartwood Hall by Katie Lumsden, aka Katie from Books and Things. If you are on BookTube, you probably have heard of her, particularly if you have heard of Victober. The publisher was kind enough to send me a copy, and I'm so excited to have it in my hands. I know very little about this. I know that it follows a governess who goes to be a governess at this isolated country house. I believe she's also a widow, and strange things begin to happen, and I know she got a lot of inspiration from Jane Eyre. There's a little preface that makes me think there's some inspiration from Rebecca, perhaps not directly, but it reminded me a bit of the way Rebecca starts, and I'm really excited to read this. So I intend to read this over the next week or so. It's currently the 12th of February, and for this vlog I intend to update you probably about every 100 pages or so. The book is 333 pages, so I may do like 100 page mark, 200 page mark, and then do like 270 page mark or something like that, and then finish so that I can break up that ending a little bit more. But like I said, I'm so excited to start reading this. I'm hoping it will be a cozy comfort read that will perhaps become one of my favorite comfort reads, or maybe it will shock me and really impact me even more than that. Either way, I have high expectations. I am so excited for Katie that she has been able to accomplish this, and I'm excited to bring you guys along with me and share with you my spoiler-free, I guess I should mention, spoiler-free thoughts on this book in case you might be interested in it. Okay, so it's actually the evening of the day of my last clip, and I'm already at page 100, technically 102. In all honesty, I probably would be even farther if I wasn't in a position today where I was reading while being distracted. My family was watching the Super Bowl, and I was kind of in and out watching as well, and so I wasn't able to super focus on my book, so it took me a while to get through a few pages, but I am really invested in this book. There are a lot of different mysteries that I'm sure in the end will all be shown to be connected, but right now they feel kind of separate, and I really love it when mystery books like this do that, where it feels like there's multiple mysteries going on and we're trying to put all these things together as opposed to just kind of one basic singular mystery. It's very well done. I'm also really enjoying the characters. The main character I have not really connected to all that well, but I haven't like disliked her. I do appreciate she actually is partially deaf, which I think is a really interesting aspect to her character, and she's definitely an unreliable narrator. Like, we get hints that she's not telling us everything, particularly about herself, and so that is very interesting to me. Louis, the child she's looking after, is really sweet, and I'm very interested to see his fallout. In fact, his character is probably the one I'm most interested in, as well as his mother, of course. I feel like they're the most intriguing to me, the ones I'm most invested in, and then the main character as well is probably the third that I'm most engaged with. There's also some subtle discussion about domestic abuse, particularly psychological abuse, and it's very interesting to read about. I'm curious to see how we continue to learn more about that, because we're getting very small bits and pieces here and there about this situation. But something I absolutely love about it is that there are not only abusive marriages being discussed, but also really happy, healthy marriages being discussed, and I really love that, because I feel like a lot of books either have most people being very content and happy in their marriage, or they have everybody being miserable, especially nowadays, usually the latter. And so I'm really impressed by how Katie has created multiple different kinds of marriages and is showing them through these pages without like necessarily dwelling on them too much. So those are my thoughts after the first 100 pages, just a lot of questions. It's definitely a very quick read. Like, if I didn't know I needed to get some good sleep tonight, I would be tempted to try to stay stay up as late as possible and possibly finish it. Probably not, but at least try to get a good chunk of the way through this. I may read a bit more tonight before I go to bed, but I do feel like overall I'm going to end up finishing this pretty quickly because it is very engaging, very easy to fall into, and the writing style is such that it's easy to read through fast. Chapters are not very long as well, which is just always nice. I guess maybe what I'll do, because I'm almost actually to volume 2, so maybe I'll try to read that much tonight. That's only like 15 more pages. But yes, I am really enjoying it. It's becoming exactly what I wanted it to be, just a kind of comfort, enjoyable read, while still having a little bit more to it than simply fluff. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just for my personal taste, I like really wanted this to be a book I enjoyed for both reasons. Both meaning it's a comfort read, like it's a really easy, fun read, but also it maybe has at least a little bit of deeper conversations in it going on that I can think about, but not so many that it becomes too deep. Because especially after reading A Tale of Two Cities, I need something a little lighter than that, but that's still, I still like having a little bit of content that I can analyze and ponder on, and conversations that I can really think about within the setting of the story. Also, as expected, there are great Rebecca and Jane Eyre vibes in this book, as well as Tenant of Wildfell Hall, which I definitely know that Katie was going for, not only because I know that she's mentioned it, especially about Jane Eyre, but also she's mentioned at least Tenant of Wildfell Hall. This occurs before Rebecca would have been written, so Rebecca is not mentioned. But yes, I see a lot of the homage to Jane Eyre, but it's not the same story as Jane Eyre by far. There's a lot of differences. The only similarities is this governess in this mysterious place, and there's a strange servant. So there's a little bit of hints there, but there's a lot that is very different. The first being, of course, that her masters are a widow and her son. But anyway, yes, all that to say, I'm really enjoying it and I'm so happy I am. It's always scary when you read a book by someone you really care for and respect, because you don't want to review it and have them see it and have them upset with you if you hated it. And so far, Katie, if you're watching this, I'm not hating it. I'm actually really, really loving it. And it's a delight. So I will update you once I hit page 200, which will probably be in the next day or two. And I will get back to reading at least a little bit before I get to bed. Hey guys, so I have gotten to I've read through to page 207. So I am at the 200 page mark approximately. And we just keep getting more questions and more questions coming up. And I'm very interested to see how these all connect, or even if they do at all. There's just so many questions. We had a new character just come into the story that we don't really know her past, but there's something mysterious about her as well. This section had the romance kind of bloom a little bit more, and I will say it's a romance that, it's not bad, like I don't dislike it, but it just doesn't grip me at all. It's like, of all of the plot lines going on in this story, that's my least favorite. Like, that's the one I'm least interested in. I'm interested in it because I find the romantic interest, I'm a little bit suspicious of him, or at least I feel like he knows something, and I feel like you're supposed to think he knows something. Does that mean he actually does? I don't know. I really feel like he has more involvement in this than you would expect, but we will see, I guess. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, the romance in and of itself doesn't have me all that intrigued beyond that possible issue that could come up, that he knows something not good, or yeah, that he ends up betraying her in some way by not telling her things that he knows. We've gotten to a point where there's some sad things going on with the little boy. Again, no spoilers, but I am curious to see how this goes. I feel like this is just a really great book because it has all of the gothic atmosphere elements, all these mysteries going on, a lot that kind of makes it start to feel convoluted, and yet it's still very much honoring the Victorian period. It's wonderful to see all of these names of books that we often discuss on BookTube, and so it's fun to see that connection. Books like, of course, novels by the Brontes, but also like The Half-Sisters by Geraldine Dewsbury, some of those books that maybe in the general public less people would know about, but they are fairly often discussed here on BookTube, particularly around October, so that's been really nice. I also have been spoiled a little bit on how this book ends because I read the acknowledgements before I started this book. Probably shouldn't have, but I did, and there's a little mention of what kind of happens in the end of an event that occurs in the end, so I know about that, but I'm very curious to see how we get there. And I feel like that's the mark of a good mystery, is if you can be spoiled but you still are curious enough to keep going, like you still are intrigued enough to see how we get there, or even better, when you have an interest in the characters that keeps you engaged. I feel like potentially once I get to the end I'll find that this is rereadable. I feel like often books like this I don't tend to reread, but just because of some of the themes going on regarding, I think I've mentioned in the last clip, like abuse and things like that, discussions of novel writing and women's position, disability, I feel like there's a strong potential, depending on how this ends, that I would be willing to reread it because of those discussions and themes. But I'm very engaged in this. Like it's only Valentine's Day, it's Tuesday the 14th, and so I got up to page 200 yesterday and I started this on Sunday, so in 2 days I'm already well over halfway through. And yeah, it's been a great reading experience. Super fast for me to read. I can't stop. It's definitely a one more chapter type of book, especially because the chapters are short. So it's so easy to be like, oh, one more. It's not going to take very long. Oh, one more. So that's been a delight. So yes, that's where I'm at. I'm going to read this time the next 70, 75-ish pages so that I can end, my last clip will be the last 70 to 75 pages-ish. So yes, we'll see how that goes. It being Valentine's Day, I don't know how much I'll get read because I have to shower. I just got back from work, so I have to shower, and then I'm going to my friend's house for a Galentine's little get-together, and I'll have to leave for that in the next hour or so. So yeah, we're gonna see how things go with that, but that is the plan currently. And like I said, I will update you once I get through that next 70-75 pages, most likely tomorrow. Hey guys, so it is Wednesday the 15th, and I have gotten to page 270, of this, and I wanted to give this quick update. I actually am unwell today. I have a sore throat and I'm pretty tired. So I have been reading and also watching some stuff, so I'm sure I can finish this. It's actually mid-afternoon right now, and yeah, like I said, I've been watching stuff as well. I honestly need to take a nap, but anyway, I'm not in here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the book. I don't have too much to add. I'm still not that invested in the romance, and it was kind of more of a focal point in this portion of the book. So that wasn't as engaging, but there's also enough mystery going on around that I'm still very engaged and intrigued. There's just so much going on and so many questions that I just feel like there's different answers to each of those questions. I don't think they're all connected by one answer, which I originally was kind of leaning towards. I just don't think it's possible for them. I think they're all connected, but I think there's multiple answers to things going on, but I guess we'll see. The main character, I really don't know how I feel about her. I'm interested in her, I like her, so she's a good character. But I don't know if I feel like she's selfish or not. I just feel like there's a lot of things that kind of showcase a bit of selfishness, but you also can understand where she's coming from with her fears and concerns. But I just feel like she's not really trying very hard to find a way around her situation. I feel like she's tempted to tell people certain things, but she doesn't want to because she doesn't want to ruin her own chances. And like I said, I get that. But I feel like she doesn't spend very much time trying to think about possible solutions, because I'm sure she could come up with some sort of solution that she's comfortable with. And no matter what, it's going to be a risk. But her whole life right now is a risk based on what we have learned about her and her situation. It's just the way she's living. And if all of this chaos is going on in the home she's working for, it doesn't matter if they fire her or not, because clearly something could go wrong with the house and then none of them have a livelihood anymore. And I don't know. It's hard for me I can't quite put my finger on how I feel about the main character, if I find her dislikable but still intriguing, or if I do like her and understand her. I don't know. I love all of the connections back to Brontë novels in this book. There's so many, like it's such a homage to all of the Bronte's novels, just little bits here and there. So anyway, that's all my thoughts now. I'm going to finish this book and then I will update you on my final thoughts. Hey guys, so I have officially completed The Secrets of Hartwood Hall by Katie Lumsden, and I wanted to share some final thoughts on it. I ended up really enjoying it. The last 70 pages were very fast-paced. I mean, most of this book is, but it is a little bit repetitive in the action that's going on. So while things are constantly happening and the chapters are short, so it's a very fast-paced read as far as the process of reading it. The plot moving forward is a little bit slow, so just be aware of that going in based on your taste in reading. But the last 70 pages, it really takes off. The plot really takes off a lot. It ended up dealing with a lot of really difficult themes, particularly for the Victorian era. Like, I feel like it brought up a lot of discussions that are common when you're discussing issues with the society of the Victorian era, and so I really did appreciate that. I really like Lewis, or Louis, as a character. I thought he was a very sweet. He's the child that our main character is going to look after, and I really appreciated his character and some of the glimpses into his psychological journey that we get, because obviously all of this is going to be very difficult for him in particular. The main character, I still don't 100% know how I feel about her. I felt like in the end, I think I decided that she was in a lot of ways pretty selfish, but I understood why, because she has suffered a lot in her life, and so there's kind of this sense of justice and like it's time for her to be able to focus on herself and her own desires. But I do feel like the way she treated her love interest in the end, while she did it as kindly as possible, I also just feel like throughout the book she was being very selfish when it came to him, and I found it interesting in the end. I'm trying to keep it as vague as possible, but in the end there is discussion of not really knowing each other, which there was some insta-lovey feelings about it, so I'm glad that that was directly addressed. But then she continues to make choices in which she seems to be assuming she understands him, and I didn't really like that. I didn't like that she recognized that she didn't actually know him, but then assumed that she knew him. So it was a little bit odd there. I also wish that that love interest had been developed a little bit more, like I had felt more connection with him, because in the end it felt kind of sad. It felt like he was more a character that moved the plot along as opposed to a flesh and blood being in the story, so that was a little bit disappointing. But I also just don't think that that was the purpose of this book. I feel like this book is really about being exciting, paying homage to a lot of Victorian novels, particularly the Brontes, and discussing a lot of issues in Victorian society. And so I really feel like it did all of those things. And there were no characters that I disliked. Like, all of them were interesting to me, and I felt like the outcome of all the mystery made sense and was satisfying. So I was very grateful for that. Hey guys, so I was editing this video, and it's been some time since I read the book, and I've just had a few more thoughts that I wanted to share, primarily about the main character and her relationships. In my final clip, I brought up that I felt like she was kind of selfish, but I understood why. I also want to add to that I don't think she meant to be selfish, and I think she actually wanted to do what was right. Like, she wanted to help other people. She had an awareness of the needs of other people. I just think she was a bit naive in her handling of it, which there's kind of this theme of her not really being able to see the world and really get much experience in her life, so it makes sense for that aspect of the discussion that the book is trying to have. But it did cause me to get a bit frustrated with her sometimes, because I felt like she wasn't even making an attempt to help other people, even if it was at risk to herself. I also realized I kind of dropped the ball on discussing the domestic abuse that is kind of discussed in this book, and I do think that's a very key point in this book, so if that's something you're uncomfortable with, be aware going in. It's not described in detail. In fact, all of it is told about, but we're not actually watching any of it happen. It's all people telling their stories. It's the main character reflecting on the past, but we're not seeing it. There's not scenes where things are happening. It's more focused on the aftermath, but, and this isn't spoilery because you know from the very beginning that she's a widow. Upon reflection, since reading it, I kind of have realized, and I don't know if Katie meant for this to be the case, but it felt like potentially it was, especially because she was inspired so much by Jane Eyre. Her relationship with her husband sort of felt like, and minor, not really spoilers for Jane Eyre, but kind of minor ones for this, so feel free to skip past. But it felt like as if Jane Eyre had agreed to marry St. John and what potentially could have happened. She doesn't necessarily go anywhere in the world, but she's married to a very religious man, and a lot of his abusive behavior comes from him thinking that she should be something else, that she's not a proper minister's wife, and that she should change herself in order to reflect better on him. And I really feel like if Jane, first of all, if Jane was less sure of herself, because I feel like the main character in this book is like Jane, but with less of a solid foundation on who she is and what she believes. Like, I feel like she's still figuring it out after the abuses she's experienced. But even before, when she agreed to marry this man, she approached it very naively. She approached it in a way where she's like, I want you to get me out of whatever I'm in. She wasn't solid in herself yet, even then, and so the abuses just made it even harder for her to have a full grasp on her own identity. And so this book is about a lot of these different discussions and about the mystery and these other characters that she's meeting, but it's also a lot about her rediscovering herself and perhaps in some ways discovering herself for the first time and coming to understand what she really wants out of life at this point. It was just really fascinating to me. So yeah, I just needed to add those few more thoughts, but back into my final clip. Katie's writing style is very straightforward and easy to read, and it made it such a fast book to get through, which you just need sometimes. You just need a light, easy read that's still, like I said earlier in this video, at least I'm pretty sure I did, I wanted a book that was going to be a nice, fast, easy read that would also bring up a lot of interesting thought-provoking discussions, and this one definitely did that. Who would I recommend this to? I would specifically recommend this to anyone who loves Victorian literature, particularly the novels of the Brontes. There's a lot of connections to those books, particularly Jane Eyre, but other books as well from the Brontes. If you take part in Victober on BookTube, I would definitely suggest this. You probably already have it on your radar if you participate in Victober, since she is the creator of Victober. But in case you weren't sure about this, you weren't sure if you were going to try it, I think you would like it because there's a lot of discussion, like I said, of themes and topics that are commonly discussed amongst people reading Victorian literature and just learning about the Victorian era. And there's a lot of references to books that are maybe not as popular in the rest of the world, but amongst the Victober community, they are a little bit more popular. And so I thought that was really fun and wonderful. Yeah, it was a delightful book, and I honestly would love to reread it with the knowledge that I have and kind of see those themes a little bit deeper, hopefully, throughout the story. And I just think it will be a great book for me to return to when I just need something a little bit lighter, but maybe on the more mysterious side as opposed to like a fairy tale retelling. And since it was such a fast, easy read, it's just perfect for when I want to just have a bit of time to just fly through it, because I know if I had been given a full day to just read this, I would have probably finished it in one day. So yes, really, really loved it. Highly recommend it to all of those who enjoy Victorian literature, as I said. Let me know down below if you've read The Secrets of Hartwood Hall, as I would love to know your thoughts on it. Thanks again to Dutton Books for giving me a copy of this book. I am so grateful. As was clear in this video, it was just such a joyous time to read. I hope you are all having a wonderful reading month, and I will see you next time. Bye!